Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Todd Berry Gospel Hour, spreading the Word of God through music and ministry.
Hi, welcome to the Todd Berry Gospel Hour. I'm your host, Judy Dallas, and we are excited to have our special guest today. Her name is Patsy B, and she is a comic, a director, a writer, and a film producer. Welcome, Patsy!
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
We are so glad to have you. We've heard so much about you, but before we get started, we want to know, how do you know Todd Berry?
I know Todd Berry because, first of all, he's famous when it comes to singing and performing, but I have done shows with him. He's hired me to do work on different projects, so I've known him, 5 or 6 years now, I think, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
well, speaking of projects, one of the reasons why you're here is to talk about your new movie that you've written and produced, that you've directed and produced,
okay.
And tell us about it, Stand Up or Fall Down?
Yes, it's a Stand Up or Fall Down is a documentary about amateur stand-up comedy. And it's the story about how anybody would start doing stand-up comedy. And I took 8 years to make it. I followed 5 comics around. So you get to see them at the beginning stages to if they kept on doing comedy kind of thing. And there's professional comics in it that sort of narrate the movie and explain about what comedy is and how you have to do it, write a joke, test a joke, go on the road, all of that. So.
And I understand that the movie premiered where?
At the Gateway Theater this past spring, and right now it's in a bunch of film festivals. So.
Oh. So, speaking of comedy and comics, you are a comic.
I am.
Tell us about how you got interested in doing comedy.
Wow. So, actually this month is my 13-year anniversary of doing stand-up comedy. And I did it as a personal challenge. In 1995, I had a closed head brain injury. I had anaphylactic shock. And part of my brain lost some information. And I had some issues. So if you know anything about brain injury, it takes time to heal. Some people get pretty good. They get most of their information back. Some people might not, depending on what part of the brain is injured. So I did stand up as a personal challenge. I was testing my brain to see if I could remember. And that's all. I never thought I was going to keep doing it. I just thought, I'll go try this and see if I can do it. So I'd gone to the Funny Bone. It was an open mic. I had written 5 minutes. About 15 friends and coworkers showed up to support me. And I did it, and people laughed. I'm like, cool, I can do it. I remembered what I wrote, and I never have to do it again. Yay! And then the next day on my way to work, I was thinking about new jokes. And the next month I went back, I had new jokes. Then a month later I tried it again. And then I entered a contest, not through the Funny Bone, another place. And I ended up winning that contest. And I got free stage time every week for a year with the improv troupe. I was like their opening act for every week of the year. It was crazy. I had the same jokes for an entire year. I can't believe they didn't hire a hitman. I so did not know what I was doing. And bless them all for tolerating me.
We are just so glad because laughter is very healing as well. And speaking of healing, Patsy B, you have a boot on here. It's 90 degrees where we are, and you have a lovely boot. You want to share that story?
Yeah. This boot is made for walking. And here's here's the truth of the story. I come from a long line of dancers. I had an uncle that was a dance teacher, an aunt that was a dance teacher, an uncle that danced in Hollywood. And so I should have the skill. I should be able to dance. But the truth is, when I was 18, I broke my foot dancing. When I was 25, I sprained my foot doing the polka. And this time, I sprained my foot doing salsa. So that makes me a break dancer, I think. So, yeah.
A break dancer with jokes.
Yeah, and my mom used to call me Grace because I wasn't very graceful.
Okay.
So yeah, I totally agree with her. And as I am a mature woman now, I have to say that probably no more dancing in my future. Because I need mobility.
Yeah, I think you should try something
Coordination.
new now. Water aerobics.
Yeah.
Maybe you should try water aerobics.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could do that.
That's a good idea. Well, we're so excited to have Patsy here again. Like I said, I'm Judy Dallas. I'm your host here at the Todd Berry Gospel Hour. Patsy, let's talk a little bit about the movie. I see you brought some things.
Yeah,
You've
sure.
got DVDs to sell. How do we buy them?
Sure. I have a website. You can Google me, Patsy B Comedy. If you just Google it, you'll find my website. And I have, there's actually a page about the movie and some articles that were in the newspaper. But if you just contact me through my website, you can get this. Now, no, this is unrated. It is a documentary. But when it comes to comedy, most people that start comedy, they're very kind of raw about what they're doing because they're trying to figure out what they're doing. So sometimes people might be super goofy or silly or kind of edgy because they're trying to make people laugh. And people get uncomfortable when it's too edgy. So that's, how comedy starts. Now, I'm a clean comic. Judy's a clean comic. It takes a lot more skill and ability to be clean and funny. And it takes a while for people to figure out how to do it. So we're extra special. We're kind of like unicorns.
Yes, unicorns. And speaking of clean comedy, and thank you for mentioning that I am a comedian because I don't do jokes on the Todd Berry Show, on Todd Berry Gospel Hour, but I have been honored to participate in your newest movie that you're still working on. It's in progress.
Yes.
And tell us about this one.
This movie is going to go a lot quicker than the last one. It took me 8 years to do the first one.
Hopefully.
Yeah. And I learned a lot what not to do from the first movie. And so now I've gotten all my, I'll say, A part of the film done. I've done all of my interviews of the people that are in it. And then we're going to video people in a show and take some clips from that. And then I'll be doing editing. I'll probably have it done, edited by January of this year coming up. So pretty quick. I started in August. Should be done by January. Quick.
Great. And I'd just like to say that I've seen the lineup of women in this film, and Patsy, just give us an overview of the women in the film and
Sure.
what we're going to see.
And how we got to it.
Yes.
The first movie is primarily, there's a lot of guys in this movie, but that's kind of normal with comedy. There's a lot more men in comedy than there is women. And we're about 1 or 2% of comics. And so you see a lot of guys and what they go through, but you don't really see what ladies go through. And it's a little different because, we might be moms, we might be married, there's other things we're doing along with juggling. We might be grandmas, whatever. And so in this last premiere, there were my editor from the last movie and Dino Tripodis, who was a former Sunny 95 DJ for 25 years. He's retired now. He said, Patsy, when are you going to do a movie about women in comedy? And I was pretty sure I was never going to do a film ever again because it was a lot of work and I wanted to cry so many times. But anyway, and believe you me, there was a lot of prayer about it. Lord, do I have to do this? But we got through it, and so I decided, yeah, I could do this. I could do a movie about ladies in comedy. So it'll be sort of the same idea. You're going to see how we do comedy and the things that we think about, why we started comedy. Are we there for ourselves, or are we there for the audience, or, you know, so there's a little more insight and surprise, I think. It's been very interesting to me how everybody's point of view.
Well, we're going to take a look at the first movie, Stand Up or Fall Down, and we'll be right back.
Jon Stewart just was outrageous, and he was wonderful. And I still chuckle when I see him on TV. I think back to that, seeing him live in it. It hurts me a little bit because I love it so much.
Anybody who is real, like Ellen DeGeneres.
The edgy stuff, the new stuff, that's what I think's funny. Very high energy and just quick wit.
You know, when I see a real, genuine moment of interaction between a comic and an audience member, that's what's funny to me.
Well, I have a hard time with comics who cuss every other word.
It's way better if they have a good personality and they're enjoying what they're doing, and they're not bringing anger into it. They're not coming from a place of anger.
It's hard to put into words, but you know it when you hear it, because you're laughing, you're on the floor, or you're smiling, you're yelling.
Minutes might not seem like a lot of time in your own head, but when you're up on stage and you got nothing, it is a long time.
A workshop is where you as a comedian get to try out material in front of other comedians that you know probably needs something. By addition or subtraction, or a word needs change, something. The purpose of the workshop is just get it out in front of comedians, in front of an audience, and see if you can get some suggestions. There's usually about 10 to 15 people in the workshop, and you're basically going on stage to ask them their opinion of a joke. So they're looking at it analytically. And so what's kind of funny about the whole workshop thing is those comedians try a new joke out, they immediately don't get a reaction, they lose confidence in it.
I just wish that there was like a social networking block for people in public in real life. They're like, yeah, I was reading this political blog, I'd be like, block, just walk away from them. But there's not anything like that. But by the same token, if some girl's like, you know, I was really drunk and I never felt that way about a woman before, you can be like, read more, read more. So, I don't know, just a thought.
First off, when you first start doing stand-up, you're just doing an impression of a comic. You first open mic night, you're doing an impression of a comic you've seen. Either you went to see a show or you saw a comic on television. And that's always terrible. Just no matter how you do it, it's always terrible. So you got to figure out how to perform the comedy routine. And that's the second stage. You're trying to figure out the mechanics. How do I perform? And then the third stage is writing, because it takes people who don't really start out writing funny. They start out thinking funny and then performing and then sort of combining the two.
I have a real diagnosable phobia. Makes you a little bit upset when there's people out there in the world just making up phobias, right? Like homophobia. What is that? The phobia of homos? Come on, for real? Like, my entire childhood, I was terrified of arachnids, you know? Long daddy legs, black widows, those guys. I don't think there's any little homophobic children who lie awake in bed at night like, Daddy! Daddy, there's a monster in my closet! He says he's thinking about coming out, but he doesn't know if his parents would accept him.
I wasn't sure that I could go on stage, remember what I needed to do, and do it successfully. So that night when I was done, I felt like, I'm done. I tried it, I did it, I don't ever have to do it again. And then the next day on my way to work, I was thinking of new jokes. So at that point I was kind of hooked.
First time I did it was like 05, I believe. I did it as a joke. It went very well, but I didn't like it. I didn't like stand-up. I'm not the center of attention type of guy.
Oh my goodness, those guys are so funny. I can't wait to see the next one, especially since I'm in it. But anyway, in addition to all of that, you have one more, I don't want to say one more ministry, I'll say. And tell us about this, tell us about your ministry as a minister.
Sure. I have been a minister for 24 years, and I'm an assistant minister, so I'm not in charge of everything.
Oh.
I do lectures and, sick calls and whatever it is, counseling, whatever's needed for folks. And what I do as an assistant, I'm supporting the head minister and then, the philosophy of our church. And so for us, what we do is we focus on trying to connect with people from where they're coming from. Everybody here in America, we're very lucky. We have the option to understand and attend different kinds of churches. We're very lucky. But if somebody comes to our church and they say they're Methodist, or somebody comes and they say, oh, well, we're Catholic, or whatever, then I kind of have an understanding. So I'd like to be sort of universal and outreach to people and say, I believe that ultimately we are all on the same team. And so that there is a welcoming and an acceptance, and that we're coexisting, and that we believe God is love. Jesus is love, and that's where we're at. So we want to focus on positive. We want to focus on God is love. We want to focus on the good, and I know there's a lot of sad and mean and hard things going on in the world. That it always has, but we have probably more knowledge of it because of the news and whatever, right? But part of, I think, what each of our missions are is to bring that light into the world and help people to remember, hey, Christ was here to be the light and the love, and so that's our job too. And even though sometimes it's hard, it's still doable. Because just like this, my shoe here, this too shall pass. It's okay. I'm not worried about it. I know. I have faith to know it's going to be okay.
Patsy, that is amazing, and we are so happy that you are letting your light shine here with us today at the Todd Berry Gospel Hour. I'm your host, Judy Dallas. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, keep living your blessed life.